Hey, again, just to prove to everybody that I don't just sit here and doodle on the chalkboard and that I actually make some pots from time to time, I'm going to stand over here. But there's a lot to be said and a lot to be not said. You just have to go look into this stuff yourself. I'm going to start talking about some of these old documents and ancient documents, not so ancient documents. Gotta realize even in the 19th century, there were people that were not on the electronics and stuck to TVs and computers and radios and all that kind of stuff. So they were still pretty much using a big part of their brain. They say we don't use but 10% of our brain or whatever, but I'm going to show you how we use more of our brain, and that there were people throughout all of history who were using more of their brain, and they were figuring this stuff out, writing it down, teaching it, just doing stuff in life. We're talking about people like Thomas Jefferson. He was a pretty cool dude. Francis Bacon. We're talking about Marcus Aurelius. We're going to talk about Socrates, Plato, all these kinds of guys. Whether they were or were not real people. We'll put Jesus and, any of the great teachers that we know about through just some symbols on some paper we call writing. So it's more about the ideas and the vibrational frequency that those ideas carry and what they mean. And, we'll talk about people like Carl Jung, who came up with the idea of synchronicity. Well, he didn't come up with it, he just labeled it or called it that, I guess. Syncretism. It's all one thing. It's this realm we all inhabit. And astrotheology, or the zodiac, and it encodes basically everything about the universe and your body and the planet. It's just all just one thing all together. Illusion is that we're separate. So we're gonna talk about some stuff. We'll talk about people like Napoleon too. There's some stuff there. We'll talk a little bit about who these people were in history. I have a so-called degree in history from a so-called university, so it's always been my thing. I've always studied it, and now I've been deep diving for years and years on going back to the writings, the original sources, which is all secondhand to us anyway. So whatever, take it all with a grain of salt, which you should be doing every day. Take some salt and drink some good water. We'll go back over here and I'll talk about some stuff that I wrote down in relation to the elliptical pattern that the sun makes in the sky. And what you see there is the zodiac house correspondence to those times a year. And you see we've got the spring, and Aries the ram, he brings us into the springtime. It's kind of like a fountain, All of these signs somehow are derived from these natural patterns. And I don't know exactly how it all works, but it's all in there, and you can think on it yourself and figure it out, learn about it. What do I have today? We talked about Marcus Aurelius earlier. Let's get back over here. That's not cool. This spot's all right. I don't know what's on I don't know what's on the screen and what's not. I'm learning, trying to figure this out. I'm better at just throwing pots, But some things I wanted to talk about today are this cool book I came across. A few people on YouTube talking about this book. Let's see. The Zodiac and the Salts of Salvation by Dr. George Washington. I don't know. Gary. So this is about minerals and salts, and I'll put the links for this book. There he is. He seemed like a cool dude. I don't know. Whatever that means. But yeah, he talks about the different combinations of, I guess, what, phosphorus and nitrogen and all the different, I'm not going to sit here and bullshit all the names of things, but you can check it out yourself. I've just tapped into it and realized how much it had in common with what I was already doing. And you'll see this will happen. You're watching this for a reason. That dude had a couple books. We'll get into it. Thomas Jefferson, he had a pretty big library. I'm going to talk a little bit about Thomas Jefferson for a minute. I'm just going to spitball, and I'm just flowing with some ideas that I may or may not be able to connect for you. I may say some things that really resonate with you, and you'll want to go look into that further. I encourage you to check out absolutely everything that I've said, or just disregard me. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. I'm just doing this to get some dialogue in the comments, inspire other people to put information out there that is helpful to them, or it may help others, and seeing what's going on out there and in there. It's all truly within you. You already have all the tools and everything you need, but you've been doing it your whole life. Thomas Jefferson. It's estimated that he authored between 19 and 20,000 letters. Now, a lot of those letters were between him and John Adams, who those two together combined, they kind of set the Declaration of Independence out there, and the whole, early part of our nation, the so-called country, which, is a corporation, they kind of gave it its birth certificate with the Declaration of Independence. And Thomas Jefferson was we refer to him as a Baconian. He knew about Francis Bacon, and Bacon being behind the works of Shakespeare, and that Bacon was also a major part of the King James Bible. He was basically an editor to both, from what I can understand, of both the King James 1611 Bible as well as the works of Shakespeare, and maybe some other works out there like Don Quixote, which was coincidentally Thomas Jefferson's favorite book or favorite novel, and it's credited as being the first novel. And I'm not going to sit here and act like I've read every single one of these books I'm talking about. It's not possible. You can only just go into this stuff and garner what's you feel is true about it, and whatever, just whatever. I'm just talking here. I'm just a guy, a man, got a soul and a spirit in here, and just putting out there what I see. And Jefferson, man, he was a governor of Virginia. Virginia was the birthplace of the United States, basically. 1607 was Jamestown. Jefferson come in the late, 18th century. He was probably born in the, mid 1800s. So him and John Adams, they had a really close relationship with one another, and they, like I said, they wrote letters back and forth, not only in the early days of the nation, but also after both of them had been president for some time. Um, I say I don't. Maybe I'm going for and try to try to tap into some of what I'm trying to say and where this is all going and so on. But just bear with me, and I'll get better at this as we go. I'm just practicing every day. Yeah, Jefferson and Adams, they had this relationship after they were both president. In fact, their relationship was so close that they died naturally, so-called, on the same exact day, July 4th, 1826, 50 years to the day after the Declaration of Independence was signed. Okay. Now, if you're into anything about what's going on with, esoteric, occult side of things, you know that numbers and numerology is kind of an important thing. And July 4th is also not just the Declaration of Independence, birth certificate of the so-called country, but it's also the day that the Army of Northern Virginia was defeated. Well, they were defeated July 3rd at Gettysburg, but July 4th was the big retreat, which was a big military, people to this day discuss Robert E. Lee's decision to go to Gettysburg, and I have my own ideas about that. We'll try not to get into that too much, though it all ties in. So please bear with me through all this. If you're interested, stay with me. If not, whatever. I don't care. So, Jefferson. Now, a lot of people believe those two were both murdered, and I gotta say, quite coincidental that they both died the same exact day, July 4th, which is a significant day for both of them and the country and all that, 1826. Now, here we are. It is now 2026. Let me tell you, it is June 29, so-called, according to the Gregorian calendar that we use now. That's just the calendar we use now. It's just telling us, it's just a reference point, whatever. So we're coming up on 200 years to the death of Thomas Jefferson and John Adams. As of today, we've got a few days to go. And let me tell you what happened 200 years before that. In 1626 is the alleged date of Sir Francis Bacon, the other character that I'm just flowing. I know earlier was Marcus Aurelius, and now we're on to Jefferson and Adams and Bacon now. But Bacon allegedly died in 1626. Bacon was very important to not only the birth of this continent. So he was alive in the era that Jamestown was settled, and he was very aware of all of the explorations that happened up to that time. And he was probably reading, for certain he was reading some of the early explorers to Florida, the journals and things that they were bringing back. They were already bringing back all kinds of stuff to Europe, and you'll see the ancients were doing the same thing. If you start looking into this, you'll see this goes back to the ancient times. North America was never not known about, basically. There might have been a short time in there where they quit coming here. There might be some missing time. We don't know. I don't know. But Francis Bacon was very interested in natural sciences, and basically is really known for giving us a scientific method of essentially knowing nothing is essentially his method, from what I'm interpreting of what I know of it and him. And he wrote a book called Natural History, was an earlier publication he did. And one of the first things he talks about in natural history is water and desalination of water, and how water percolates up from the earth, as in how an artesian well or spring works. He was interested in water and knew of its importance, as did the ancients. So these guys are basically reviving things that are already known all the time. And that's what I'm doing to you, with you right now, on a digital format that we can all understand in a better way. Because nothing's new under the sun, and this is just a renewal in a frequency that exists in the greater time scales, the bigger sun scales and the bigger solar scales. They occur on big, you hear about things like the Mayan calendars and whatever, all this stuff. These are not really prophecies, so to say. They're just telling you how it works, and your body works the same way. And these guys knew something, and you'll find that Thomas Jefferson was basically a Renaissance man of sorts. He knew all sorts of sciences and languages, and he read all sorts. He had a big library, and he was also into excavating Indian mounds and archaeology, because he was aware, I believe, and you can start looking into this stuff yourself and see what you think. See what you think these guys were doing. Were they good or bad or not? Anything? I don't know. But we know that he left a bunch of written records of his archaeological digs in the Indian mounds, and he found how they were buried, and recorded it. And he recorded the layers of material that he was digging through, and did a very meticulous, according to today's standards, archaeological setup. He just stake it out and dig in there and write it down, the types of soil that they used to make the things, and wrote how the bones were collected and put basically into the skull and all together. And in the smaller mounds that he excavated, there were bones. I think some of the bigger mounds don't really have bones in them, but it shows that they buried the bones after the body rotted away, and they had practices. He was looking for the variations of all the different tribes and what their different practices were, and how they were related to other ancient civilizations that are known. Because I believe Jefferson knew, and probably Bacon before him, because he was probably interested in the information that was coming from North America as well. Like Jefferson was interested in the information that was coming from the West, and he sent Lewis and Clark out there. And whether they were all involved in secret orders and so on, I can't say. I don't know who would, but he was interested in the information, and he wanted samples of stuff brought here, and he was piecing together the greater picture, and he was aware of the greater picture, which is not what we're taught, that man evolved from a monkey or something like that. That's ridiculous. And that man developed first in Africa or the Middle East or something like that is basically not true, or partially true. Everything's partially true or not true at all, basically. So we have to take what is true, and and what I'm saying, like I say, look into it, and what you make of it, what you will. These are just writings that are passed to us. What does it mean? I don't know. So these are just some morning ponderings on some stuff. I'm going to wrap up. I've thrown a bunch of stuff out there that may not make sense to anybody at the moment, but bear with me, and I'll keep bringing things into the picture. And have a great day. Thanks for sticking with me and coming today. And I'm gonna do something so-called productive. Peace.